Minister Shanmugam.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank the honorable members for their comments. We continue to be one of the safest places in the world. People are confident that the home team will carry out its mission fairly and effectively. My colleagues from my ministry and I will try and deal with the points raised by the MPs. Let me turn to the points I will deal with. I will first speak about our approach to religious harmony before setting out our transformation approach. Mr. Singh, in his speech, quite an important speech, raised 4 points. 1, possible religious bias of top civil servants now and in the future. 2, our LGBTQ community. And 3, a possible government statement on strict secularism. And 4, updating the 1989 white paper on maintenance of religious harmony. Let me start with the point about religious bias of top civil servants. He raises the possibility of bias now as well as in the future. And he asks, and I quote, is there a danger that laws and policies could be tilted towards particular religious beliefs by top civil servants, if not now, maybe sometime in the future? Mr. Singh will accept when his words are transmitted to the public, many will interpret him in essence saying that top civil servants could be biased and they could act in favor of religious communities because of their own religious beliefs, both now and in the future. I would say leaving the public with that impression about our current top civil servants will be seriously wrong. They are persons who have dedicated their entire lives to public service, loyally, faithfully. If there is evidence of such lack of integrity amongst current senior civil servants, then I agree it should be raised, stated, and we must deal with it. If the statement was meant only to cover a future possibility without any hint or suggestion of a lack of integrity amongst current top civil servants, then that should have been made crystal clear. Since Mr. Singh has raised an issue relating to one of the key foundations of Singapore and one of the key foundations of our success, that's the integrity of our senior civil service. Let me state the position categorically and quite starkly. The basic principle we follow and apply is that which Mr. Lee Kuan Yew had said in August 1965, and I quote, "We are going to have a multiracial nation in Singapore. We will set the example. This is not a Malay nation, this is not a Chinese nation, this is not an Indian nation. Everyone will have his place. Equal, language, culture, religion. Freedom of religion is guaranteed, but in the public sphere, public policy making, we don't make decisions which favor any one or other religious group. Neutrality and fairness are essential. Otherwise, in this small place, we will lose the trust of the people quickly. That goes for cabinet ministers, senior civil servants, the public service as a whole. And when these principles are not observed, they must be dealt with. Situation today, for the past 62 years, these principles, secularity, neutrality between religions, have been one of the golden threads in our public policy making. That is one of the key reasons Singapore is where it is now. My ministry in particular has a direct role in dealing with the issues relating to race and religion. We formulate, implement policies which deal with these issues. I have over the years worked with many senior civil servants, PermSecs, directors of ISD. The current head of civil service was my PermSec in Home Affairs, outstanding officer, unimpeachable integrity. He has given more than 35 years, his entire adult working life, in the service of this country for the betterment of Singaporeans. It would be most unfair if he and his colleagues are tainted with the suspicion of religious bias without proof. I emphasize I'm referring to the impressions that Mr. Singh's words will leave with many and not what he may have actually meant. How the words could be understood do matter. My current PermSec was Director ISD, PermSec Law, then PermSec Transport, 28 years in public service, again an outstanding officer who is driven by only one aim, which is to make the lives of Singaporeans better. Since last year, he has been working his guts out, leading the HCEG, coordinating and managing our pandemic response so that Singaporeans can be safe. We look for officers of this character and caliber, and they should not in any way be tainted with suggestions of religious bias in their approach. I have highlighted officers from my ministry in particular because we are at the forefront of dealing with religious issues. We meet different religious leaders. We work hard to preserve religious harmony amongst the different faiths. Our integrity, honesty, reliability, and neutrality are key to us, and those are the currency we deal in. Whether the people we work with accept us depends on these factors. And this is important in another central way. We promote officers on merit. You don't want other questions to be asked. What is his religion? What is his race? Once we ask those questions for promotion, I think we will be in trouble. I don't forget what I said in 2003 and the leavening the effects of meritocracy by taking into account the position of minorities. What I say now can stand together and be qualified by what I said in 2003, though the latter point I emphasize is a purely personal view. Or take another officer beyond the two I mentioned, Isa Masood, graduated from MIT, formerly Deputy Director in MOE, Director at ECDA, now CE of MOIS. One day he will go back to the civil service. He should be assessed on the basis of the quality of his work and not on the basis of the quality or nature of his religious beliefs. And that goes across the public service. For me, when a police officer attends to a call at a house, you don't want people to think this is a Muslim officer or Christian officer or a Hindu officer. You want people to think this is an SPF officer. I personally keep close track of trust levels in our police force. They are now extremely high, and we don't want to get to the levels of some first world countries where people march in the streets to abolish the police force because of racial issues. It is not accidental that we have one of the highest levels of racial harmony in the world. That is the present. The quality of our civil service, their integrity is a key reason why Singapore has succeeded. But I also want to acknowledge many of us have our own religious beliefs. Not everyone is or can be expected to be a saint. Sometimes there can be a tendency to see things through a religious lens or a personal perspective, and that can apply to all ministers, civil servants, ground officers. We have to guard against that. We have to avoid it, leave personal viewpoints, and look at it when you're making public policy through a secular perspective on what is in the interest. You'll be informed by your religious beliefs, but you have to look at the broad majority and see what is in their interest. We have to jealously guard against any such tendency to look through a particular lens, whether it's ministers or anyone else, and we have to set the tone from the very top, insist on the secular approach, and be strict about that. And Mr. Singh is reflecting, I think, what some people might feel. And I will say to him today that's not a systemic issue, and we have to guard against it. And what is a safeguard? It starts with politics, how we conduct it. And religion, how important do we make it in politics? In debates, do we dog whistle? Let's be honest and ask, how often have speeches done that in this house? It is a responsibility on both sides of the house. You want an example of where it can lead to? Look at the United States, how votes are sought along religious lines. We go down that route, we will be in trouble. Mr. Singh also asks, what of the future? I will make 2 points. One, We have, over the years, developed institutions, a system, the Public Service Commission, PSD, rules that seek to promote the best officers and weed out those whose integrity is not clear. The assessments are multifaceted, and we have safeguarded the independence of the Public Service Commission because the degradation of the civil service will seriously damage Singapore. Second, having said that, my second point is, to be blunt, whether the senior civil service remains world-class and has integrity depends ultimately on who the ministers are too. The timber of our ministers will ultimately decide everything else. If the ministers are biased, they lack integrity, then that will spread, maybe slowly, but surely. The institutions that we have set up can delay the spread. It may depend on how long the top remains bad, but it won't be a happy situation. We have avoided these outcomes so far, and you only have to look at some countries outside of Singapore, many countries, including first world countries, to see what can go wrong and how quickly. Second, Mr. Singh spoke about our LGBTQ community. I have made the government's position clear. The amendments to the Maintenance of Religious Harmony Act, MRHA, make it an offense to urge violence on the grounds of religion or religious belief against any person or group. Action can be taken under the MRHA if a religious group using religion attacks a non-religious group, such as LGBT groups or individuals. Equally, if a religious group or its member is attacked by non-religious persons or groups, say LGBT, action can also be taken. Law is even-handed in this context. This was emphasized by me during the MRHA second reading and also during my speech at last year's COS. Regardless of which community, what your social, religious, or sexual beliefs are, everyone will be protected here, and I have said so categorically. LGBTQ persons, non-LGBTQ persons, we are all equal. We are not any lesser by reason of our sexual preferences. And if anyone stirs hate speech, either for or against any sexual or religious community, we will take action. Doesn't mean action will be taken on every occasion. Police will use their discretion, assess the context. We have set out our position. If Mr. Singh thinks that there should be any change or variation to this position, I will be happy to hear from him. In particular, if he wishes to clarify what exactly is his position on our LGBTQ policies, I'll be happy to hear from him. Third point that Mr. Singh made was on secularism. He asks for a statement. Our secular stand has been made clear. When the government looks at policies, we do so in a secular way. We guarantee freedom of all religions. We don't favor any particular religion. Last year, November, at the Religious Rehabilitation Group seminar, I set out how our secular approach works. I also explained how our approach, for example, differs from the French approach. They are also secular. I've spoken about our approach at least 9 times over the last 5 years, and I don't think Mr. Singh wants a 10th speech. I can give Mr. Singh the references. Government's position is quite clear. Most people know what it is. The fourth point he makes is updating the MRHA WP, and WP here refers to the white paper. I can assure Mr. Singh religious issues, interaction of religious communities is a top of mind issue for us. Let me set out some things that have been done in the last few years. In April 2019, I delivered a very substantive ministerial statement titled Restricting Hate Speech to Maintain Racial and Religious Harmony in Singapore. I explained the government's position and approach in dealing with hate and offensive speech. Then we went further than a white paper. In June 2019, in the same year, with the support of the government, our religious leaders worked together on a commitment to safeguard religious harmony. They affirmed the shared values and the way of life of Singaporeans. This approach has underpinned the religious harmony we have. Today, nearly 700 religious organizations, 680 to be exact, and 73 community groups have affirmed this commitment. I would invite a careful study of this very important document. It is a commitment by the major religious groups and organizations on the principles of religious harmony that should govern us. It goes beyond past declarations on religious harmony. It details the many positive ways in which Singaporeans have been interacting across religions, and it encourages Singaporeans of all faiths to practice tolerance and acceptance. For example, allowing each other to profess our faiths and to do so in a respectful manner, eating together with others, even if we have different religious dietary requirements and practices, and attending the life events of others, such as weddings and funerals, even if those are held in the place of worship of that faith. That more than 680 religious organizations have committed to this specific call to action is to be celebrated. It won't happen in many countries. We followed that up. In October 2019, we amended the MRHA in several major aspects to strengthen our ability to safeguard against and respond more effectively to threats to our religious harmony. So it can be seen, we have reviewed the 1989 white paper. We have taken concrete steps after that review. We have considered the evolving context, brought religious groups and leaders together, affirmed a new document of principles, and have amended the MRHA. The amendments also introduced a higher standard of behavior for religious leaders, for example, because of the influence they can wield. For example, if you are a non-religious leader and you said something in a private context, that may not be an offense, but if the same thing were to be said by a religious leader, the defense is much narrower. He's got to show that it was only a domestic communication between the leader and his relatives or member of his or her household. Given the many steps that have been taken, there is no immediate need for another white paper, but it's an issue which we will keep reviewing. I thank Mr. Singh for raising these issues. They are important. They allow us to examine again some key and important points. Let me move on to some of the other efforts. Mr. Pillay asked, how will the home team balance increasing demands on it, given the manpower issues? I have said before, there is a limit to increasing our resources and manpower. It's in short supply all across Singapore. To deal with this, we have been focusing on transformation, increased use of technology. Chairman, with your permission, may I display a set of slides on the LCD screen as I make my points? To start with, we set up the Home Team Science and Technology Agency, HTX, that was in December 2019, to develop customized tech solutions for our needs, better use tech, reduce some types of work, multiply our capabilities. It has built up talent and capabilities, HTX, 14 centers of excellence, a number of areas, biometrics, sense-making, robotics. It's also developing expertise in managing data centers and cloud-based technologies, and a security operations center, 24/7 monitoring will be set up. HTX will continue to upgrade its capabilities. Let me now move on to how we will use tech to transform home team operations. Sensor networks, cameras. We are enhancing our frontline response through greater use of cameras. The police have installed almost 90,000 cameras in major public locations, HDB estates, neighborhood centers, and car parks. That's been a game changer to deter, investigate, and solve crimes. As of December 2020, police cameras have assisted in solving nearly 5,000 cases, 4,900 to be precise. Surveys have shown that people feel safer with a prominent placement of police cameras in their neighborhoods. In the next several years, I promise that many more cameras will be installed across the island, subject to the budgetary situation. Next, police have redesigned our neighborhood police centers and police posts to include automated self-help kiosks so people can access police services around the clock. 3, police will roll out 300 next-generation fast response cars by 2023, within the next 2 years. They will have cameras which will provide 360-degree view of surroundings to the police command center, and it will allow commanders at the command center to assess the situation and deploy backups. The cars will also have video analytics tech to read number plates, automatically flag vehicles of interest. So you'll be surrounded by sensors, which make people feel safer and more confident. Fourth, police have deployed 2 police beacon prototypes at Sengkang and Punggol for a year. Police beacons will allow members of the public to contact the police directly during emergencies, and they will come equipped with a range of tools to create deterrence and project presence. They will also have CCTV cameras, so situation can be assessed immediately, quickly, and they are particularly useful in more secluded locations. Beyond sensors, in terms of investigations, police and CNB are working to sharpen their investigation capabilities with tech. One, the investigation and case management systems are being digitized and automated and streamlined so that officers can access information and update cases on the move instead of having to go back to the office to do it, and save time on handling paperwork and admin tasks because the tool will be an integrated search tool, searching multiple databases at one go. 2, Mr. Pillai asked, how are police adapting to tackling some of the more challenging cases of scams and commercial crimes? Police are seeking to use tech again, for example, automated screening of financial transactions when investigating scams. They also have tools to quickly extract and analyze digital evidence from mobile devices, thumb drives, but I think members will understand. In the end, there is a limit to how much can be done when the scammers are overseas. 3, I'll deal with the tech and our emergency responses. SCDF, for example, is building the next generation smart fire stations, starting with the new Punggol fire station. They will make greater use of sensors and automation to help with manpower management, operational response, decision making. Manual processes like tracking the readiness of emergency supplies vehicles, rostering of duty personnel will all be automated. And during emergency, an artificial intelligence system will send critical information, floor plans of buildings, live video feed of the site to our officers where available, even before they arrive at the site. That will help officers assess the situation, develop a plan faster, enhance their response. Our SCDF officers will also be having smart wearables that will be integrated with the smart fire station systems, and it will allow commanders to monitor officers' physical condition during operations and training to reduce risk of injury. 4, our paramedics will be able to access patient data from MOH databases when responding to a 995 call. It will allow for more effective medical intervention. Moving on to ICA, our aim is to have travelers move through an automated lanes when they enter and leave Singapore. We are aiming for contactless. Some of the necessary tech has already been put in place. First, today, eligible travelers can already use what we call the multimodal biometric system to clear immigration by scanning their face and iris. It's more secure than fingerprint clearance, and also contactless. Traditional paper-based card system has been replaced by the SG Arrival Card e-service and mobile app. That facilitates smoother immigration clearance, enhances the advanced screening of passenger info. As regards the iris and facial images, we intend to upgrade this. Travelers' identities we will verify through iris and facial images at the automated lanes instead of passports and thumbprints. And ICA has conducted trials. It's promising results, with promising results. Ms. Sylvia Lim asked, how is ICA managing new demands arising from COVID-19 and how foreigners are held following their release from prison if they cannot be repatriated immediately, and whether additional manpower was required. ICA has been putting in place plans and systems to cope with the new demands. The digitization efforts began some years ago. It enabled them to cope with the new demands brought about by COVID-19. The digital services can adapt to changes to our border control rules, designed to enable ICA to administer relevant measures for different groups of travelers, also enables integration. For example, ICA integrated electronic health declaration cards into the SG Arrival Card platform. Second, ICA has enhanced its e-services, which will allow it to automatically process many of the applications. and significantly reduce volume of applications which have to be dealt with by ICA officers manually. As regards the question on repatriation of foreigners, ICA will seek to repatriate them as soon as possible, but of course subject to the availability of flights and border control measures both here and elsewhere. Where necessary, ICA will house them temporarily in existing prisons or other ICA facilities. Some additional manpower was needed to resource new functions, but ICA has largely coped by redeploying officers to meet the new demands, like the Safe Travel Office and enforcing stay-at-home notice regimes. When the surge of travelers comes back, and travel comes back, there is obviously going to be substantial demand on ICA, and we will have to deal with it. It is something we are focused on. Ms. Sylvia Lim has asked about morale of ICA officers. ICA has implemented additional measures to support the ground officers. Senior commanders engage them officers regularly, gather feedback, try and address their concerns. Of course, not every single concern can be addressed, but the serious engagement and attempt to solve the issues properly are important. Morale is generally okay. Let me now move to prisons. Prisons has also made good progress with tech, in particular what they call the prisons without guards strategy. The vision is to have a smart prison that leverages technology to automate routine work so that prison officers can be more focused on inmates' rehab. So for that, one, again, they go to smart cameras, video analytics, which will assist officers in monitoring inmates' activities, movements, detect irregular behavior such as fights and medical emergencies. Two, technology is also helping substantially with rehabilitation of inmates. They are given mobile tablets, the inmates, with e-books and guiding resources to supplement their regular lessons and programs. It allows the inmates to learn at their own pace and take greater ownership of their rehab. We are developing a mobile app for supervisors in the community to reinforce their learning and rehab. The supervisors can use the app to access customized e-resources, keep track of their progress, and look for job opportunities and community support. We are also expanding community corrections. We want to allow more inmates to serve a larger part of their sentences in the community as long as it is safe to do so. So for a longer periods, they are out. And that can be done, we think, through greater use of technology to monitor the inmates in the community and help compliance with supervision conditions. So Prisons is developing a tracking device that looks like a digital watch. It's more discreet than the ankle tag that many members might be aware of, reduces the stigma, it boosts the supervisor's self-confidence, helps reintegration back into society. And Prisons has also enhanced its digital case management system, making it easier for community partners to access case files and share updates with prisons and staff. Let me now talk a little bit about how we have been using robotics and unmanned aerial systems or drones in the home team. Mr. D. Souza asked, how do police seek to overcome operational constraints posed by COVID-19? The answer is greater use of tech. Drones and robots were deployed for security operations at COVID-19 isolation facilities, which reduce the risk of exposure for our frontline officers. SCDF has been using robots to fight fire at an industrial fire in Tuas in March last year. These robots tackled the most dangerous parts of the fire with immense heat and poor visibility. The home team will continue to build on these capabilities. Police have likewise deployed drones and robots at major public events for crowd management and public safety. They will also support officers in their daily patrols. In future, you may see 3 SCDF officers and a robot responding to a fire on board the Red Rhino, instead of the current 4-man section. These robots are capable of pushing deeper into the seat of fire and can help to carry equipment and casualties. We are also enhancing our ability to deal with the threat of drones. Police and HTX are developing what we call the Sentinel, which is a mobile vehicle platform that can be quickly deployed to detect, track, and safely take down rogue drones from a long distance. Police are exploring how to equip the next generation FRCs with counter-drone capabilities. Let me now move from the hardware to focus on how we are transforming service delivery. ICA, for example, is bringing more of its services online. Today, residents can register or re-register for their IC online. They can also update their address online instead of visiting the ICA building or the police post. ICA will be issuing more types of documents in digital form, such as birth certs, death certs, and long-term passes. ICA will also introduce push notifications for all Singapore residents with registered SingPass accounts to remind them to follow up on transactions with ICA. For example, you may receive a reminder to re-register your IC on your 30th or 55th birthday. Dr. Tan Wu Meng and Mr. Faisal Manap spoke about not excluding those who lack IT access or are less IT savvy from home team services. I entirely agree. We try to design our e-services to be simple, seamless, and convenient for everyone. And we will also try and assist those who need help. If they need physical channels, we will provide help desks, self-help kiosks, and service centers. Specifically, Dr. Tan raised about security officer license. Those who want security officer license assistance can call the police licensing and regulatory department to make an appointment or visit their service counter during office hours. Citizenship and PR applications, those without internet access can visit the Citizen Connect Centers, CCCs, for free access to internet-enabled computing devices. Those who require more assistance can approach ICA officers at the ICA building. ICA is building a new integrated services center next to the existing ICA building to provide counter services. Members of the public will be served at a single counter for all services. We will also try and make it more seamless customer experience. Construction works for the integrated centers have commenced and targeted for completion by 2023. Mr. Pillay asked about our plans to upgrade the skills of our officers. I will give some examples. The Home Team Academy has been using the Home Team simulation system. They train our officers in managing large-scale security incidents, joint operations. It requires fewer resources to carry out than a physical training exercise. Home Team Academy will enhance the system with new tech like artificial intelligence and expand the usage by officers. SCDF's redevelopment of the Civil Defense Academy will include a digital learning lab, and it will provide virtual reality training for SCDF officers, such as extricating people from a car wreckage. The approach is always to try and upgrade the skills and make the training more realistic. What about our manpower needs? HTX will need to hire a few hundred scientists and engineers over the next few years to build a critical mass of experts in areas like digital and crime scene forensics, robotics, automation. There are also other new developments that continue to drive up demand for manpower. For example, while LCA uses technology, it still needs manpower to run operations at future checkpoints, TWAS Megaport and the RTS link. SCDF2 will need more ambulances and more officers to attend to the growing number of medical emergencies due to our aging population. Police will need to expand the deployment of in-situ reaction teams, IRTs, to patrol high footfall locations in Singapore to quickly respond to armed terrorist attacks. We also need to increase the number of police investigators. I've mentioned that previously. Number of investigation files handled by land divisions increased by 36% between 2015 and 2019. And the cases have become more complex. Crimes are increasingly tech-enabled. Perpetrators, often anonymous, may often be based overseas, requires much more effort to track and identify them. Mr. Pillay asked how we are supporting the well-being of our investigation officers. Apart from increasing the number of investigators to manage the workload, police are currently undertaking an internal review of their systems, processes, structures to see how better we can support our investigators. Mr. Chairman, Mr. D'Souza asked if COVID-19 has prevented police the time and opportunity to evaluate how technology can be better utilized. Members will see from what I've said, police, the home team as a whole, have been exploring, investing in technology for some time, even before COVID-19, and that has stood us in good stead during COVID-19, and we will continue on that path. Thank you.